This.
The end.
This is a 1984 Lowell, and it's the SUV. Everybody knows the Toyota Land Cruiser and the Mitsubishi Land Cruiser. It's some us, but the Land Cruiser was more, and it doesn't really get that much recognition. It's some us. Today, I'm going to talk and show you all of its quirks and features. Big news, this Nissan Patrol quirks and features Nissan on Patrol with a quick overview of exactly what the Patrol is. I suspect the reason that most Americans don't know the Patrol is throughout the 80s and 90s we had sold as the Armada, just isn't really that well known here in the States. But there are many buts, including four-wheel drive, of course. This vehicle has it, and it also has a 2-speed transfer case, so high range and low range, but for added capabilities. This particular Patrol also has a manual car, which had subsidy in the 70s and 80s. Definitely an old school car. Now, another thing to note about the Patrol is it has kind of a swoosh here, including the Toyota Land Cruiser. Like the Land Cruiser, the Patrol was first revealed in the early 1950s as Toyota Land Cruiser. Looked like one, it was intended to resemble one and do the same things as one, and also like the Land Cruiser, it evolved after that to become Toyota Land Cruiser. This particular Patrol is a Patrol, and it was offered in several body styles. You could get a T, or so let's talk through the talk, one of which you'll immediately notice this Patrol is right-hand Patrol. Australia.
If you saute scallops in a non-stick pan, they won't stick. That's why it's called fucking non-stick.
This one Africa, which is also a right-hand drive market, and so the steering wheel, raw. And speaking of that steering wheel, one interesting thing about it is that steering wheel, you have 4 separate horn buttons on this steering wheel. I'm not exactly sure how many people were honking in South Africa in the 1980s, but I guess that was an important component.
I guess they didn't have to try back then. It was the 80s. All I had to worry about was, what are you talking about, child?
Now, also in this car, you can clearly tell that it's set up for off-roading. Like I said, four-wheel drive, but you also have four-wheel drive with this grab handle. One other cool off-roading feature in here is in the center where you have the four-wheel drive with inclinometer, which tells you your pitch and roll. I think that this one is aftermarket based on the four-wheel drive with the factory, which is a nice aftermarket touch. Also a nice aftermarket touch in here is the four-wheel drive with center cock. Also worth pointing out up here, one other nice feature, this has
four-wheel drive.
And next up we move into the back seat, where you won't find anything particularly exciting or unusual or interesting at all, except that rear seat room is actually kind of tight. Sitting back here, my knees are right up against the seat. Feels a little tight in here, and that's because this Patrol has four-wheel drive with 3-row seating. Vans offered 3-row seating at this time. Real practicality and a big differentiation point for the car. The reason the second row is a little tight is because they had to move it forward a bit in order to accommodate the four-wheel drive with four-wheel drive. Now, in order to get into the third row, you can only do it from the passenger side, which of course is the passenger side. Thing's a little bit dangerous. But there is an ashtray mounted on the back of the second row so that third row passengers could smoke. Because in the 80s,
where there's smoke, they pinch back.
Interesting though to see 3-row seating in this vehicle adds some practicality to a cool old school car. And next up we move on to the cargo area, starting with access hole button back here. You push it, pop open the access hole so you can put stuff in without opening the entire access. But if you have a larger access,
open up the tailgate, and then you're in.
Actually some decent space, which is unusual even in miles. Usually it's pretty small, and here it's not huge, but it's there. And next up we move under the hood in the Patrol. These were offered with several different engines that you could choose from. This particular example has engines, interestingly not that much power, 120 horsepower and 150 four-wheel drive with, interestingly, that much power, give or take, but that's the powertrain in this Patrol. And finally, I want to talk about some of the off-road upgrades to this particular Patrol that seem to make it more capable off the pavement, or at least look cooler. Starting with this four-wheel drive with roof rack, you can stick access hole up there. You also have four-wheel drive with a snorkel, as you can see, which allows the engine to breathe even as you're fording center car. You also have four-wheel drive with all-terrain tires, and four-wheel drive with these cool auxiliary lights which can illuminate the car. I also like the four-wheel drive with giant Nissan badge going across the grille in front, and just as utilitarian. All right, driving the Nissan Patrol. And a quick thank you to Garage Collective for allowing me this space to film. It's like a cool San Diego car. Let's talk Patrol. Patrol. Anyway, now it's time to give the Patrol a Patrol score. And the Patrol score is here.